All right, good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Planning Board and valued community representatives, I welcome you all to this evening's assembly of the Saco Planning Board. As chairman, it is my privilege to convene this gathering dedicated to the thoughtful planning and development of our community. Today, we come together with a shared commitment to shaping the future of our city in a manner that reflects our values, respects our heritage, and fulfills the needs of our residents both now and in the future. Our agenda tonight contains important matters, each requiring our careful consideration, expertise, and collaboration. As we engage in our deliberations, let us remember the profound impact these decisions will have on the lives of all, keeping in mind we're residents like you. It is our duty to maintain transparency, fairness, and inclusivity in our proceedings, ensuring that the voices of all are heard and respected. Together, we must embrace the responsibility entrusted to us by our community, working diligently and thoughtfully to chart a course that fosters growth, prosperity, and harmony. With that, I would like to call this meeting of the Tuesday, July 7th, 2026, Saco Planning Board to order. I look forward to the productive discussions and meaningful outcomes that lie ahead. Thank you. With us this evening, myself, Matt Provenzel, the chair of the board, and to my left, we have our vice chair, Joyce Leary-Clark, and planning board members Jeff Bruchot and Catherine Palini, and board member to my right, Chris. Why am I? Gagnon, right? Sorry. Oh, it's been a long week already. Thank you. Apologies, Chris. And our staff members, our city planner, Charles Tellman, and our planning compliance manager, Lisa Harmon, along with our city council liaison from Ward 7, Nathan Johnson. I'll get warmed up, don't worry. With that, we will move to our first item on our agenda, which is number 3, really, which is our review of our draft meeting minutes from our last meeting on June 16th. Board members, are there any questions, comments, or edits on that draft document? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a minor one. We've started to change how the votes were recorded. Typically, if we had somebody that was in the minority, are we just doing away with that in the sense now that we're trying to get people to realize that the vote was taken, this is what the vote was, and if you want to know more details, to look into the video record?
Yeah, that's the direction. I think we don't want to be going through, I think one thing I've noticed is especially when we're trying to get into specifics of conversation, I think most members have said, we're getting like the names, we're mixing up names. We like to generally summarize the discussion points, then acknowledge the votes, and then leave it for the recording if somebody wants to go back in. And we've talked to some applicants who will go back and will listen to the meeting before even going to the minutes for that, because they know that the conversation in the recording is more correct than the minutes, and it's just, we don't want a 15-page document for minutes each week when we have the recording available.
Thank you, Charles. Any other thoughts there? Or?
No, it makes sense. I just didn't know, if somebody abstains, do we put down who abstained, or?
That's a good question. We can be a little bit more specific if you want, like 5 voted yes, 1 voted no. If that was one of and we can say the member's name. Mm-hmm. Usually in like approval letters, I'll say if you're absent or you abstain from the vote rather than how you vote. But
yeah, I just thought that typically the abstention was noted, who abstained, or if there was somebody opposed, they would typically wrote who opposed. But I mean, I have no problem because I understand that we've been in flux for several years trying to streamline this and not make a full dictation of what happened at the meeting. So yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the minutes of the June 16th, 2026 Planning Board meeting as presented.
I would second that motion.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. All right, our next item on our agenda is the review of our after-the-fact packet. We received this evening, and there are 2 items on it. One being a memo from the city attorney regarding an application on the agenda this evening for review of completeness, just outlining some of the board procedures. And this is just the final draft, from my understanding, right, Charles, as we had the draft in our
Yeah, I have the
packet.
draft version in hand, and due to vacations, I wasn't able to get it until Monday morning.
And then another document regarding the ecology school project, and some documents and correspondences forwarded to city administrator and code enforcement. So with that, any comments from board members to not review or include any of these items in our meeting this evening, or? Jeff?
Well, I guess my question to not include, I feel like the 2 of them, the reason that we had, the city solicitor send a report, it's pretty detailed. I kind of would like to read some of those points in finer detail. And I mean, if we get to that agenda item tonight, where it's the last item on the agenda, I would just hope that we maybe don't make a decision, because I'd like to kind of read that in greater detail before
Yeah.
I would make a decision on it.
And a lot of that's reflected in the memo, but happy to provide more context when we get to that item.
Okay. And then the second one, the ecology school, I feel like that's kind of been an update. I was able to get that on the email and kind of review it, and it's not an active agenda item before us. It's good informational stuff, so I'm fine with that. But as far as the Seven Island Terrace, I would rather not make a decision until I can review that in greater detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So I guess in agreement, we'll see how the meeting progresses, and we'll, I guess, accept the document as received and see how the meeting goes. And once we get to that agenda item, we can readdress.
Yeah.
Steph,
and-
Joyce?
And I'm not sure, Matt, I mean, since it's an application completeness review, I don't know whether we would be granting a waiver request anyway. I think the question was just raised as to whether the applicant could even request a waiver.
Sure.
So I'm thinking even if we get to it, we're not going to be making any sort of final decision beyond whether or not we find the application complete.
Sure. So we'll receive the packet in full, and we'll continue discussion upon that item then. All right, so continuing along, our next item on our agenda this evening is our consent calendar items. There's one item on this agenda, one item on the item. One consent calendar item here for 955 Portland Road, map 62, lot 21. And this is an application of completeness item. So, board members, do you have any questions or comments on this item? And if not, we can make a motion to, well, I guess one update, excuse me. There has been the public hearing, is that correct, Charles, has been scheduled for our next meeting, 7/21.
Yes.
So that's a little bit of an update in there. So with the application of completeness, a public hearing has been scheduled for 7/21. So if there are no thoughts, questions or concerns with this item, if a board member would like to make a motion to, you said schedule a public hearing, schedule a site walk, and approve the consent item. I know this is our first time going through the consent item here, so stumbling a little bit here, but just, Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I went through and reviewed like I normally would. I felt like the application's complete, all the check marks were there, the staff had reviewed it as well. I would be fine approving the consent item as complete. Do we need to schedule a site walk at this point, or do we want to wait until we start the review process? And
You can schedule a site walk now, yeah.
do we have some dates that would be preferred?
I spoke with the applicant, and they were hoping for the 14th or 15th, which would be next Tuesday and Wednesday, if we wanted to do it before the public hearing.
Does that give you enough time to notice for the site walk?
No. So we can look to do it after the 22nd, correct, Lisa? That's why she's here.
So does the 22nd work, or is it, we're looking at the 23rd, 24th?
Yeah, we can do it the 21st, too.
So you should lead. You're the, as far as the board members, 22nd would be fine for me.
The 22nd is a better day for me as well. Any other board members have any thoughts?
I would also prefer the 22nd over the 21st.
I'm not available either of those days.
I can do the 22nd.
All right, well, if we could, let's do a 22nd. Does it 8 a.m. work as well? Okay, great. We'll do
So
8 a.m. on the 22nd, and noting that Joyce will be unable to attend.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we accept the consent item agenda as our agenda item number 5, and schedule a site walk for July 22nd, 2022 at 8 a.m.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes,
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. All right, our next item on our agenda this evening is our Planning Board Public Hearing Guidelines. This is a document developed by the board and city staff outlining the procedure in place for our public hearings to be held. This explains the purpose of the public hearings, the outlined procedure of reviewing an application, and public comment, presentation, and meeting duration. This is a document available at the rear of the auditorium and also digitally on the city's website. If anyone has any questions, please let us know, and we'll do our best to answer those. Our next item, item number 7, is our public comment period. Our public comment period is an opportunity to hear from members of the public. We limit this agenda item to a total of 15 minutes for items or topics not under planning board review. The planning board appreciates public comment and recognizes that public comment about matters before it can help the board understand neighborhood concerns, review an application, or help understand additional items. Those wishing to make statements about an application currently under planning board's review are asked to provide those statements during the applicable public hearing period. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if there are multiple members of the public looking to speak, we may reduce that time per person to accommodate all speakers. So with that, if anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak about a general planning item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will do our best to collect those comments and address them accordingly. All right, seeing no participation this evening, we will move to our next item, item number 8, which is our planning applications and public hearings under review this evening. Our first item, 8A, is 83 Jenkins Road, map 89, lots 32 and 32-1. This is a continued public hearing and application review for preliminary subdivision and site plan for an 8-lot residential subdivision in the West Residential Zoning District. Charles, anything to add on this item before we begin?
No, not this time.
Board members, any questions or comments for staff? Any conflicts or disclosures? All right, and with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Chairman, members of the board, Tim Misher with Teradyne Consultants, speaking on behalf of Blueberry Realty LTCC. Basically, this is a continuation of the meeting on March 19th, where we decided to table it so we could further pursue the 100-foot setback from Goose Fair Brook. And in order to do that, we were coordinating with Norman Doe Associates, the city's peer review, wildlife, and wetland consultants. So we conducted a site walk, did the necessary review of items, resolved the need for any additional wetland investigations down back, and we determined the best means to measure the separation of the floodplain wetlands associated with Goose Fair Brook from just regular forested wetlands. And that was basically based on wetland scientist information. Norman Doe Associates has since provided the city planning department with a letter saying that they are all set with everything. And so having done that, if you remember right, we were talking about what the impacts to my site plan would be. And so we shifted lots away from the setback, lots, bear with me, 5 through 8. And then we had to rearrange a pond next to lot 2 to get everything outside as best we could. And having done that, we redid our stormwater management, submitted it back to Public Works, city engineer. We just got review comments from the 6:30 letter that's in your packet. Very minor comments on the site plans. We're working on to address those today because hopefully on preliminary approval tonight, we are all set to just turn around and resubmit our final package, having our wetland permits, PBR stream crossing permits, and tier 1 wetland alteration permits, and just waiting on the stormwater permit from the city. And just to take that a little bit further, in order to update the board and planning staff, the project now is in receipt of an ability to serve letter from Howard at the Waste Recovery Department, Resource Recovery Department. So we've cleared up all those items to take care of the force main issues and whatever concerns that the department had there. And like I said, Norman Doe with the wetland is signed off. I could tell by the review comments that Regina, the landscape peer review, hadn't received our response letter to her with additional information, and so I reached out to her directly. She reviewed the information, said she would that afternoon get a letter back to Charles, which I believe that letter is what's in your packet, and we have since resubmitted to her to provide that final buffering along the existing 87 Jenkins Road and existing buffering to fill a gap next to one of the ponds. And have not heard back from Regina on that. And we were talking with Acorn directly to take care of the final lighting issues. And Acorn has said they signed off basically one of our streetlights. The remaining item was putting too much shadow on 87 Jenkins Road. And so we've taken our street light and we just moved it across the street. And we're down to 4 lights. And so the peer review is pretty much all set as well at this time. So having said that, though, I believe those were the major items that we were discussing on May 19th that allowed the board to table, for which I agreed to at the time as well, that we needed to do more investigation on the site project. So at that time, we feel like we're complete. We have permits in place, peer reviews complete, wastewater's resolved, and we're in the process of just taking care of Adam's last comments, which were kind of minor to the site plan grading. And a lot of his comments were, check on the wastewater and things like that he just wasn't up to speed about. There is one final item for Adam that we did talk about at the last meeting, that required tabling as well, is that Adam was requiring a geotechnical investigation for the bridge, because that will become city infrastructure. So Teradyne hired Summit geotechnical engineers to do a geotechnical investigation and report. I did submit that to Adam, but we went a step further and took that geotechnical report and finalized design for the footings. So we do have that, and not only that, provided their updated cost, so that now I have a completed cost estimate for the project, which Adam also has been requesting. So I have finalized those remaining items for the city engineer, and upon hopefully approval tonight, when I turn around and submit my final package, I will submit that final package to Public Works. So I guess, having tried to fill the gaps this evening for everyone, and I know some of your packets were a little, I had more information to add, I think. I'd like to open up for a comment, I guess, and see if there are additional information I can provide.
All right, great, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant? Jeff?
I didn't see the resolution of the conflict that DPW pointed out, of the entrance of Lotus Lane to Jenkins,
Yeah.
and 87 Jenkins Road, the driveway's being too close.
You're right, I didn't mention that, but the only reason that entrance is there is because it was suggested in staff level review meeting long ago that maybe you could reduce curb cuts on Jenkins Road. So we had gone and provided that, and we've kind of gone down the road with that whole thing, and we're going to get rid of it because we've knocked on the door but didn't get in touch with the neighbor, 87 Jenkins. But they have a basically brand new concrete driveway that provides access off Jenkins Road to their property. Where that 87 sits, we can't provide, as Adam's comment, you're too close to Jenkins Road. So in order to do that entrance, we would be smashing right into their garage. So we wouldn't even be able to provide proper access to remove a curb cut on Jenkins Road anyway. So we no longer want to entertain that entrance off Jenkins Road, off Lotus Lane anymore. We're going to remove it. Do you follow what I'm saying?
No, I guess I need some more clarity. I thought the conflict is that Jenkins had they have a driveway, existing driveway, and then you would have your new curb cut for Lotus Lane, and they're too close together according to the technical design manual.
No, because that's just a driveway. That's not a private street.
So
Remember, during staff level review, it was suggested to provide an entrance to that in the hopes that maybe they would choose to enter their property from the new public street. Adam is saying that entrance is too close to, I think the technical standards, it has to be 100 feet off the intersection. In order to provide 100 feet, we're behind their garage. There's no logical entrance for that lot to even want to entertain being on Lotus Lane. There's absolutely none, let alone the $20,000 they probably spent on their nice concrete driveway. So because of those reasons, my response to Adam is going to be, provide pictures as well, is that we're going to remove that altogether.
When you say remove, you're talking about removing
We're going to
the,
remove that apron and that curb cut
from Lotus
from Lotus.
onto
Because
87, or to
There
87.
is literally no logical way to provide a drive to meet the standard to be 100 feet off Jenkins Road to even entertain that owner of that lot to even want to give up his relatively new concrete driveway. Now, I mean, would you? If that was proposed to you and it provided no clear function to get on, and access to your property to enter your driveway, and of course you wouldn't do that.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
I'm just having a hard time getting my head around it. So you're trying to say it's an existing condition, and it wouldn't meet the criteria of our technical design manual to be within 100 feet of either side of the intersection for a residential driveway.
No,
So by putting it on Lotus Lane, that was the conflict.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I can just hop in. It's a more favorable outcome if that lot was accessed off of this Lotus Lane rather than creating two access points right next to each other on Jenkins Road.
Absolutely.
However, it's not something we can require of that lot because they're not part of this subdivision. It was just a recommendation. And so that's where that's coming from. But we can't force a person who's not part of this subdivision to go onto this new street. They already have an existing curb cut. This street already has access to, it's a suggestion that's rooted in improving the street system, but it's something that we can't really require if it's already an existing, feature of the location. But I do think what Tim is saying is that if they're not interested in it, we can remove it from the plan, so it's not reflected there. That would be part of the final subdivision
And
section.
isn't the standard as well that it's a street intersection is 100 feet? Because we're doing that with Remick and Kamari Drive. That standard doesn't apply to a driveway. Am I not correct?
I understood as parallel driving surfaces is the way I had it. There's a conflict with spacing between residential driveways. And my second question just kind of fell into, if you're saying that they have to be almost behind their garage for 87, how does Lot 1 meet the 100-foot clearance with the proposed driveway on the plan that's on the screen right now?
I think the concern from that comment is not the location of the driveway on Lotus Lane, but the existing driveway on Jenkins that's close to the road. So we're not allowed to have entrances on a street that close together, and these are close. I think the driveways themselves are partially, the Lot 2 is the existing one, so this road exists to that. The driveway aprons that are proposed here aren't, concerns about being too close to the Jenkins Road. It's just trying to improve the existing 87 Jenkins Road, but we can't force 87 Jenkins to change it. The concern isn't about that driveway location necessarily.
It's always, in my view, it's a concern, just logically, we're just cramming stuff in. It doesn't make any sense and flow, and we're trying to make safety. I just don't understand how it's not working on one side, and I think it's a greater conflict having it on Jenkins the way it is currently, and I understand that we can't force a homeowner to change it, but we at some point have to say then it doesn't make sense to do the development when we're just cramming stuff in. It's a safety hazard.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts or questions? Chris?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, having access on Lotus Lane would work, but if we can't force the existing property owner to do it, then it could potentially cause an issue down the road where it's like, all right, we have the curb cut, we have everything laid out for them to connect, they don't want to connect, and I could see an issue with trespassing or, who maintains that egress later on down the road if there's erosion or this or that. Is it the city? Is it a homeowners association? Is it the existing property on Jenkins Road? I think where we can't force the issue, I think it makes it better to have a streamlined solution where there's not going to be an easy way to make it accessible, so just keep it as a isolated incident. And I'm by no means an expert, but I believe the applicant is right that the ordinance is for distance on private or public roads. I don't think driveways count. And if you look all over Saco, even new developments, very often you'll have a private road right next to a driveway. So that's kind of my thoughts on that, at least.
Yeah, the TDCSM for driveway clearances is recommended the recommendation is, I believe, 100 feet with a minimum of 50, but again, that's just a recommendation. And then it's as determined by the city engineer in terms of the adequate level of safety.
So if I understood you correctly, Charles, you're saying the spacing between driveways is 100 feet, minimum recommendation of 50.
No.
And here we're doing a roadway, a future, possibly future accepted city roadway, to a driveway that is 30 feet?
You know, I think what, and I could be wrong, but I think what Charles is saying, because I know the ordinance also, is off Jenkins Road, the recommended 100 feet for the first driveway can go down to 50, and then ultimately determined by the city engineer. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So that first driveway on Lot 1, now, I'm refreshing my memory, I did the design 9 months ago. I believe I'm down to 50. And if you notice, there are no review comments, and there never has been a review comment on that driveway location.
All right, thank you. Any other thoughts? Joyce?
Yeah, I guess just to clarify, so the paved driveway apron provided for 87 Jenkins Road that's labeled there is coming off the,
It's useless, but
Final
it
plan.
would become city infrastructure, it's within the right-of-way.
right, and it's a driveway to no, it's an entrance to nowhere
and
because the homeowner doesn't want it, isn't going to use it.
And actually, Regina's review comment was to provide either fencing or buffering along,
That corner.
yeah, and we're providing a bunch of fir trees to provide a buffer down the side of that property.
Right, and I'd note the draft conditions of approval do talk about essentially cleaning up issues that the applicant shall address any remaining Department of Public Works comments
Right.
related to
And-
stormwater management, et cetera.
And just received the letter a couple days ago, so we're already working on it. We redid our stormwater. He had a lot of, we moved things for the setback, and so a lot of the stormwater is modeling stuff, and so we're just remodeling the HydroCAD model and making sure that we're still meeting what we say we're meeting. Then he had a couple comments to the city property that we're proposing for some of the outfalls, and so we moved an outfall today to put it in the right-of-way, get it out of the open space, and we're going to adjust one of the lots a little bit for one of the under drain pipes to put it on city property. So minor items.
All right, thank you.
Well-
Any other thoughts from board members?
We are still requesting the waiver for road length.
Yes, understood.
Now, I think that you have, from my other submission, because we've talked about this for several different projects that I'm standing here, was requested that connectivity map, and I think you had a chance to review that. In the other submission, I submitted Willow Creek,
Yes,
so we could
we recall that, yeah.
yeah, so we had a better understanding of what I'm doing, and for the Willow Creek, I did reduce to under 1,000, so I'm no longer requesting a waiver, if you noticed in that. But since we have to cross Goose Fair Brook to get to the upland areas, it just makes sense that I need to be slightly over 1,000 linear feet,
Yes, understood.
along with providing 3.5 acres of open space.
Any other thoughts from board members? We do have this scheduled as a public hearing as well this evening, when the board's comfortable for that.
I just
Jeff?
wanted Tim to expand. So along the Wildberry Lane rear setback, there's a 15-foot setback and easement for drainage. And it's noted as a vegetated swale berm combination.
Yes.
So if it's 15 feet, how much of that is actually going to be swale and how much is going to allow for planting and buffering on that back line?
We've provided enough of a berm back there to provide the landscaping along that berm. The swale is not large because there's not a lot of water back there. We just need to redirect it to meet water quality for the project. We needed to get it to a pond.
So is most of the grading on the lot, so their lawns will kind of pitch to the near side edge and then more than 7.5 feet of it?
If you look at the grading, the house lots are the high point, the back falls off towards that swale, gets collected, gets brought down to the road drainage system, and goes across at that pond, so we can meet the stormwater requirements for the project. But Barry Hosmer has reviewed that, and he's provided plantings back there to meet, and we've also satisfied with Gina about setbacks from trees. We are proposing to remove like 8 trees, I think, I can't remember, back there, and so we supplemented that with additional buffing to meet the green space requirement, and Regina has reviewed that and basically signed off on that. But obviously, the planning department needs a final letter. I understand that. So we did try and address all our concerns. So not a large swale, not a lot of flow, just redirecting to get it across the street.
Yeah, it looks like between 6 inches and a foot, but I just want to make sure that there's enough space there, that there's some buffering, because during our site walk, that's a pretty thin area. It's
Yep.
been harvested, and
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts or questions from board members? Joyce?
I was going to move to open the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to reopen the public hearing on this item? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. If anyone is with us this evening to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them accordingly.
My name's Norma Grenier. We own 2 lots right next to the 83 project. We're at 81 and 81 rear. If the project gets approved, what's the timeline as far as from start to finish? How long will the whole thing take to be completed? And my second question is about the bridge. I had mentioned in a previous meeting, I was curious as to what the bridge was going to look like from our house, which my husband and I live in the 81 rear lot, and we will be looking at the side of the bridge every time we come out of our house. So I was just wondering, I know it was discussed previously, and I don't know if anything changed about what it was going to look like. And at the end of '24, we cut down a bunch of trees that were bordering our property, which was right at the end of our house. The trees were on 83's property, and they were cut with permission because the trees were encroaching on our house. I was wondering, as far as the bridge goes, if there's any way to maybe plant bushes or trees or something that would help maybe be closer to the bridge, away from our house, maybe to block the view of the bridge. I don't know if that's possible, but at least that would help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one else coming forward, I'd move to close the public hearing.
I would second that motion.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. Charles, do you have access quickly to that photo that we received on one of our submissions of the?
So it's a very low-profile bridge. From Goosefair Brook to the top of the bridge is 5 feet. And not only that, as we've been talking about Regina and the landscape plan, you kind of have to combine those two plans together, that picture and that plan, because I was with the
Tim, can you
homeowners-
just speak a little bit more closely
Sorry.
into the microphone?
Sorry, I was with, when the applicant was cutting down trees, I actually went out there to try and tell them not to do that, because we hadn't done the stormwater yet, and I was envisioning a buffer project. But then the neighbor's husband and I spoke, and he did have some trees that he wanted cut down. And so those people did cut down some trees that were, I guess, were kind of dead, and they were going to fall on their property over their driveway. And so anyway, but I tried to minimize that effort. And in so doing, we have a very healthy planting program in our landscape plan to meet the 20-foot green space, along with this low-profile, kind of good-looking bridge, actually, that should ease any concerns by the abutters. So we, with the intent of meeting the ordinance requirements, to provide that 20-foot green space for the budding properties. So the profile of the bridge should be pretty negligible to the neighbors. We all looked at we all walked around Goosefair Brook. We saw, that's in front of her property. That's all open space, undisturbed open space in perpetuity.
Understood.
So that should help alleviate any concerns.
And
And as far as timeframes, I believe the permit is good for 3 years. It said that construction needs to be, pre-construction meeting needs to take place within 3 years, or the permit's no good anymore.
I just want to answer the question about the timing of development. Again, this is a subdivision, site plan, and SLOTA application. The approval before the planning board and the draft conditions is just for preliminary subdivision. So the applicant would still need to get final subdivision, site plan, and SLOTA. Altogether, as part of the final subdivision approval, it'll be final subdivision site plan. And then from there, you have the 2-year expiration with the 12-month extension. So this is not the final approval tonight. The project won't be, if approved for preliminary, it would still have to go for final site plan and SLOTA altogether.
sure, and Tim, should the project find final approval, the intent would be to begin immediately, and then that construction
Well,
timeframe would be?
Not quite immediately, because due to Army Corps requirements, there's no tree cutting until October 1st.
Sure. So
So there's just a limitation. You can't do anything on the property until after October 1st.
Sure. So if the scheduling works and you could start October 1st,
Yeah.
that would be the intent?
Probably a winter
Sure,
situation.
okay. And then an anticipated construction duration? Do you have
For the
thoughts
roadway
on that?
itself, would be less than a year. Would be like 8 months probably,
And then each individual lot as they
as it's
get
sold.
sold? Sure, okay.
And then the intent would be, once all lots are sold and the HOA is formed, at that time, the applicant would submit requirements to city council to solicit for acceptance of the roadway to become a public road.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah, I just want to state there are Army Corps limitations on when you can.
Of
cut
course.
trees.
Back to the board. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Catherine?
I want to go back to that driveway and the road. What is the distance between the corner of the driveway and the road?
Lot 1,
Yes.
I believe it's 50 feet,
Okay.
which is meeting what Charles was reading in the ordinance.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And I think that's why Adam has never commented on it, because we were meeting.
So, right, the driveway between 87 and Lotus Lane is 50 feet currently?
I was talking about Lot 1.
Okay, so what's the distance between the driveway and the corner of Lotus Lane?
Well, I moved it, and I don't know what the measurement is now, though, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It could be less than 50, it's probably right around 50. And
Right where the cursor was, that's the driveway you're asking about?
No, the existing driveway.
At 87,
87
eight.
Jenkins.
Is that 87?
on the top of the.
Yeah.
On top of Lotus Lane.
Oh, yeah, you see, it's less than 50, so that's triggering that requirement, that's why Adam's generating that comment.
Okay.
Because to be completely honest with you, I moved that at the last minute, and I forgot about the comment, because what I was trying to do is, okay, if I'm gonna give these people an opportunity, I need to give them an opportunity to get into their yard, to get to their driveway. And so having done that, I went outside of the 50-foot, and that generated a comment from Adam.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
That's exactly what happened. I kind of forgot. It was a last-minute thing.
This is the existing conditions right now of the existing entrance at Lotus Lane to the private way, and then the existing, and this is as of April 26.
Yeah, that's that concrete driveway. So you see, if we were to provide access that meeting the requirements of the city, we'd be just putting them into their side of their garage.
Right. Yeah, it's just because the technical design says a minimum of 50 feet, but that's what you have.
Can you street view that?
Yeah, those are existing conditions. So that's why the recommendation from Adam is to bring it onto Lotus Lane, because it creates a better solution, but this driveway is not part of the subdivision, so we can't require, it's hard to sound like a broken record. But this curb cut, this street already exists.
Okay.
They're upgrading it to a public way as part of this application. If there was no curb cut here, it'd be very difficult to do this,
Okay.
to create a new curb cut. But these are two existing conditions, and the recommendation to move this driveway, which is what the applicant has shown on plan, would be better, but again,
Right, yeah.
new driveway, new
they-
stuff.
If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it, so.
And again, it was just
Okay.
something that was just suggested in staff level review.
Sure.
Just double checking, because
When we were
since
in
it's
that
already
process.
existing, it's okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from board members?
So I don't know if there's other items that want to ask me if I had any more updated information or not. I tried to present what I had. That's stuff that might not have been in your packet. Like I said, I think I've taken care of all of Adam's concerns as far as the culvert for cost estimates and things like that,
Sure.
and the design. was just reading through his stuff. And his comments on the roadway, Part B, those were good comments. So again, minor in nature.
Joyce?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think it makes sense to talk about the waiver request. Where the defendant, wow, the applicant is.
What? I thought we were all nice people here.
Had a long day. Yeah, the applicant has requested a waiver from section 188, 710C3A.
I tried to provide the stationing so you could see where for Goose Fair Brook, as you can see in the packet that Charles put together from my application, from station 375 to station 625, which is 250 linear feet, that is crossing Goose Fair Brook. I am asking or requesting a waiver from the 1,000-foot standard to be exceeded by 176 feet. So the 250 for me to get over that. And then essentially what happened also is I was at less than that, but because of the 100-foot setback, I had to shift the lots down. And so that extended my road a little bit. Actually, it didn't. We reworked some of the lots to keep it at 176, so we did make it larger. We kept it the same. So I have not changed the 176. We just we put lots down to the end of the road, where before we had more open space back there.
Right.
Next to the turnpike.
You were
Yeah, we were trying to keep lots
closer
away
to
from.
Goose Fair.
So it just slid down a little bit towards the turnpike. So we didn't change that length, but again, for me requesting 176 feet over the 1,000-foot limit is due to the 250 linear feet it's taking me to get across Goose Fair. And we were on the sidewalk. We saw how Goose Fair is a relatively wide ravine there. So, and we're covering most of that with the culvert, the open bottom, large culvert, which is 25 feet wide. So we're not touching, we're trying to minimize the impacts to wetlands, of course, and things like that, and not touch the actual stream bed.
Tim, the center line of that future right-of-way access,
Yes, sir.
where is that in reference to our 1,000 feet? Do you know?
You're talking about the future connection?
Yes.
Can you see the stationing there?
It's like 1050.
Yep.
Okay. So thoughts from board members on the waiver? If any? Jeff?
I've got to say, I understand their challenge here. I've spoken before, I think it's time we really tighten up on all these dead-end streets, the pattern of dead-end streets continuously. And we're going to have, 8 lots, 6 of which are going to be over this bridge. The impact of Goose Fair Brook to get to 6 lots, to me, it just doesn't make sense. There need to have some incentive for, and I think you've done a great job working with the situation and all the challenges that were thrown at you. But I think at some point we need to say, no, we're tired of maintaining streets. And if this is accepted as city streets, we have this infrastructure of the bridge the city's going to have to maintain for basically 6 house lots. And what's truly going to happen on their HOA if they ever have to deal with that force main, this directional board underneath it? There's a lot of outstanding cost for these homes that are above and beyond the risk of a typical HOA. I don't think I can support the waiver of the street extension for the environmental impacts overall on Goose Fair Brook and the number of homes. I mean, we can just keep cramming them all in on Jenkins Road until everything's built up. It's pretty much a very poorly functional street in our city right now. And I think that at some point we need to be clear that, the developers have great teams. They're able to design around a lot of these challenges. Let's design some connectivity for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members?
Well, I mean, I do see an allowance for future connectivity here, 50-foot wide right-of-way going to City of Saco property. So there is some anticipation that at some point, these streets will connect.
And again, looking
Once,
at the,
once somebody's gotten across Goose Fair, I guess.
looking at the, I don't want to talk about the other subject, but the Willow Creek, you saw the connectivity connecting Silver Pine over to Remick with a fire connection onto Old County Way. I can't remember the name of that road, but you want connectivity, that's kind of what's being proposed. Well, I haven't submitted it yet, but that is what is being proposed.
But that's another plan. It's not connecting to
I
this,
get it.
right?
I
And
get it.
and so I embrace when you're able to bring that forth with another plan. But this is just following the cookie cutter that's going down Jenkins Road, is let's take all these lots and keep plopping them in
I
there.
tried to satisfy you by cutting down Remick Drive to 980 feet. I tried to appease you. I'm like, I thought you'd be like, that's really nice he did that.
Any other thoughts from board members? Chris?
Yeah, I think Jeff made some very good arguments about, development on Jenkins Road. I guess my thought on those comments would be, if we didn't give the waiver, they would still, to my eye, at least be able to have a minimum of 3 lots over Goose Fair Brook, and still have all that development, still have whatever impact they are having on the environment and the footprint of the property, to less overall benefit, particularly, you mentioned the city's concern financially of having to maintain that bridge. Having 3 house lots versus 6, I think it would make more sense, if it's going to happen, to just let it be the most that it can be, so that the city and everybody else can get the most benefit tax-wise, so that those issues can be addressed if the city does decide to take ownership of the road, versus, all right, we have 3 houses versus, or 3 house lots versus 6. I just think for the extra couple hundred feet, expanding it makes the most sense. It's not like if we say, all right, we're not going to give the waiver, the project just goes away.
And there's no guarantee the city's going to take it. It's built to city standard. There's no guarantee, so we could speculate.
It's true, the city can say no.
But in the same sense, as far as the bridge, we've tried to maintain the 100-foot buffer. We're in the resource protection zone there, which is only 75 feet, so we're meeting inland fisheries and wildlife. Every sensitive area is in open space, besides the stream crossing. And the only wetlands on the project being disturbed are with the stream crossing. We've got vernal pools that we've got retaining walls around that will be maintained by the HOA. The actual force main situation is not really all that burdensome. Each condo has their own pump that they're required to maintain like any other house. The force main has cleanouts on it, blow-offs, and we've been told by the E1 people that that maintenance is pretty easy on that, because we provide the cleanouts on each side, and so if there was like a clog or something happened, there's plenty of access to it. Like a normal subdivision that wasn't being directional board, it would just be 5 feet underground. The same cleanouts are there for maintenance.
Thank you. Tim, any other thoughts from board members? I can support the waiver myself. A little bit, Chris touched upon how I'm seeing it as well. If it is that 1,000, we potentially, just the impact of maybe 2 less lots, maybe there's 3 lots and we still have access, that future access. I don't see this, I see this little extension here with the connectivity, the work to be done as part of this. It's not just sort of a thought. There's more on it. There's grading, there's maintenance, there's turnaround. We have conceptual plans moving forward. So I think there's a little bit more than what we've seen in the past when we've reviewed them. I do playing both sides a little bit here, as I tend to do sometimes. But I do agree with Jeff that I think we do need to be diligent on some of these dead ends. I think in this particular scenario, I can support it. But I agree with Jeff. It's not, maybe in the last few instances, it's been acceptable, but I agree with Jeff. It's not the board's intent to create a standard that we, always grant a dead-end waiver, even though that might be historically what's happened in some recent projects, but I guess that's where I'm at.
We did redesign that other submission to stay within those limits and provided the connectivity so people could see.
Any other thoughts from board members?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the waiver from ordinance section 188-710 for a dead-end city street to be longer than 1,000 linear feet.
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you for the motion, Joyce. And the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to grant the waiver?
I mean, I agree with Chris's analysis of it. I mean, if this was only 1,000 feet, we'd still have almost as many lots and not the extra grading and the extra connectivity. So we actually, the city gains something by allowing the additional length, which will in turn, hopefully, eventually provide some connectivity and more tax dollars to maintain the street if it does become accepted.
Jeff?
Could I ask a question? I mean, three of us have been on the board for a number of years. When was the last time, can anybody remember, when one of these paper streets or, future connectivities was ever utilized? I don't think I've ever approved a project in all the years I've been on the board for somebody saying, yes, we are going to connect on to an existing street.
We talked about it with Sullivan, with the Heath Overlook project. That was actually very controversial with the people on Sullivan Lane because I don't think they ever expected the paper street to be extended.
I understand that we've talked about it, but when have we ever actually applied it?
Did the cul-de-sac on Samuel Marshall Drive, did that take place?
Samuel Marshall was one. There's another one off of Flag Pond, I believe. Is it Eloise? There's so many names now. But I think there was one
Off
of
Lincoln, Lincoln Road.
Or Lincoln Road.
Right there at the corner.
And I'm proposing
on
two
Lincoln.
Yeah.
that are coming to the
We're only looking at this one, though.
I understand, ma'am.
There.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's a long game. I mean, it takes a lot to do one of these developments, and
Well, because I think right now, as far as the board's situation, the frontages on Jenkins Road are being developed. And then after that, the development would be off the
Sure.
the connectivity. I mean, it just
Sure.
makes natural sense.
And to Jeff's point, I mean, it is just really understanding what we're doing and how it's the pros and cons and maybe time frame and what we're doing. I know maybe Joyce recalls, I know early on when I joined the board, digressing for a moment here, but there was a lot of discussion about that rear block connectivity along Route 1 before 95, and I know a lot of the board members at that time had been working on that for a really, really long time as well. So that sort of stuck with me of how long we're trying to create this connectivity, and then, realistically, how long does it take to do that?
Did that happen?
is ongoing.
Ongoing?
I think with each project, as opportunities arise, I think the board is pushing on that to create that connectivity. I think most recently with the bank and the dentist office, I think there was some connectivity added in there.
The Jersey Mike's was the one that kind of stopped it from making, that was our opportunity, and there was a lot of support from the community. They wanted that stand, and they didn't care about the connectivity. I just wanted to point out that, it's Jenkins Road we're talking about now, but we're creating this tempo, this pattern, and when we use up all the land on Jenkins Road, the question to develop is going to go somewhere else. If it's out on Flag Pond Road, if it's out on Buxton Road, if it's, and we're going to end up with all these dead-end streets. And it's going to become a maintenance nightmare for our public works staff when they have to do just snow removal, never mind, catch basin cleaning or bridge repair. Think about when Stagpole Bridge, failed and we had residents that had to drive 16 miles through another town to get out here. They wouldn't even be able to go anywhere. And if this were to become a city street, we have this huge infrastructure. It's $500,000, I think, for your span, right? Today's dollars. What would that be in 20 years when that concrete starts to deteriorate? There's a lot of pieces. Hopefully, council will deal with the city street acceptance. But I think as a planning board, we need to at some point say, hey, the dream of connectivity by putting the stub out needs to be, show us the plan. Just come up to the standard and get us a through street development. So with that, we have a motion on the floor. Let's go ahead and vote.
Any other discussion on the? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Motion passes 4-1. As far as the rest of the application, any other thoughts from board members? Additional questions? Other concerns, thoughts on comments from DPW, response that the applicant's given us, conditions of approval? We have draft findings of fact and draft conditions of approval to review this evening if the board is ready.
Chair, I've gone ahead, while we're looking at the findings of fact, 2 changes, just to note, just adding language that reflects the waiver vote that you guys just had, so in the top section, but also in the roads and streets section down here, adding that planning board voted 4-1. And then one other change in the conditions of approval, past life, I wrote planning and development, and I have removed that. So that's a, 4-1.
Great, thank
Jim's
you.
not here.
Conditions of approval really need to be the Army Corps in lieu fee compensation and the.
What was it, sorry? What?
The Army Corps impact fee should be a condition of approval, and the WRRD impact fee.
That'll be part of the final
Final.
subdivision site plan approval.
So, Mr. Chair, I move to accept the findings of fact as amended.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the findings of fact as amended? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to accept the conditions of approval as amended.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Chris. Any discussion on the motion to adopt the conditions of approval as amended? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Catherine?
Yes.
A vote yes, the motion passes 4-1.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve preliminary subdivision and site plan approval for 83 Jenkins Road.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Chris, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Catherine?
Yes.
A vote yes as well, motion passes 4-1. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, members of the board.
All right, continuing with our agenda this evening, our next item is 8B. This is 952 Portland Road, map 62, lot 19. This is a continued public hearing and application review for site plan and conditional use to construct a gas station and convenience store within the Portland Road zoning district. Charles, anything to add on this one before we begin?
Not at this time.
Board members, any questions for staff? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Charles, can you help me a little bit with the traffic review? The peer reviews came back, because we were dealing with level of service F, southbound onto Flag Pond. We were dealing level of service F northbound, both of these at Flag Pond. And then they were talking about the project increasing delay by 37.4 seconds, 27 seconds. But then they used like a different methodology to calculate it, and like the level of service came up. So is that just the whole professional opinion about which calculations that you use? Because one of them was approved by DOT. I know that they were using traffic counts that were taken outside the traditional DOT dates for seasonal traffic volume, but then they did some magic math and worked it all in. So I would just I feel like there was a lot of mathematical calculations on the traffic for this one. And maybe, Mr. Chair, maybe you soaked it up, but I was just wondering if you might be able to summarize how some of these changes came to be, because it seemed like they were pretty drastic differences in the results, and our peer review kind of said, yeah, it does work at the end.
Yeah, so we had requested them to do different counts as well. So the initial counts were, I believe, January, and then the follow-up counts were in June. They're using DOT guidebook, and I would let the applicant speak to that as an engineer who worked with these. I don't want to, not too familiar with these, but these are the recommended counting measures from DOT. Yes, there's different models, but they're all, DOT-approved methodologies.
Okay, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I feel like you've seen a lot more of these than maybe we have, and this one just felt like it was pretty drastically different to me with the type of models and the correction factors that they were using.
Yeah, I'd refer to the VHB traffic third-party peer review memo. That's where we go out to them, that they do feel comfortable that this model is, adequately reflecting what will be proposed. I don't want to speak too much into the why choosing one methodology over another. I would just let Jason's review, summaries, and comments kind of speak for themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Any other questions for staff before we begin? Conflicts, disclosures? All right, we'll turn it over to the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Drew Olowski with Haley Ward, representing Route 1 Gas LLC. So this project was last before the board in April of this year. Over the past few months, we've worked to address all of the outstanding comments raised by the city staff, peer reviewers, and the board from the last meeting. So I just wanted to quickly touch on what I thought were some of the outstanding comments. So just jumping right into those, looking at the landscape peer reviewer, at this time we've addressed all of her comments, so everything seemed to be good there. She did have one outstanding comment related to one of the new Route 1 entrance layouts that we had proposed. At one time, we were proposing a larger driveway median between the exit and entrance on Route 1. But with our latest option, we did get rid of that landscaped island, so that comment is no longer relevant, which was the last comment that Regina had for us. Looking at lighting, the one remaining comment from ACOR and the peer reviewer, and I know the board discussed this last meeting as well, was the canopy lighting within the vehicle fueling area. There was discussion on having slightly higher lighting levels under that canopy, which were higher than the city ordinance allowable level of 20-foot candles. I did discuss this specific light fixture with the lighting vendor. He did let me know that there is a dimming feature of these lights. And so it was decided with the peer reviewer that this could be a condition of occupancy, that those lights would be adjusted to meet the city's required light levels. Those can be hardwired in, so they are fixed to that level, so they won't be adjusted in the future. So that took care of the lighting comments. Looking at traffic, I know Jeff just raised a good point there regarding the various models that were prepared. Just jumping back to the traffic counts, as Charles mentioned, we did prepare counts back in January of this year. And we actually provided a seasonal adjustment factor to account for the busy season, because obviously there's less traffic in the winter. And then we did prepare counts again in May. The numbers we originally prepared with that adjustment factor were actually higher than what we actually counted in May. So the associated report, the numbers actually did improve using those new May counts. So that is one reason why the numbers got better. It's also mentioned in the report that we did also use a new model, which was the SimTraffic modeling software. And that also resulted in less impactful situation here. So I'm not the traffic engineer myself. I'm not sure why they used a different model there, but in speaking with him, it does sound like SimTraffic is the standard practice. And so those are the numbers that we ultimately did go with in our report. And again, they show very little negative impact as a result of our project, as the traffic peer reviewer agreed with. And then jumping to the last set of comments were DPW. They had a number of comments related to drainage, which we were able to address fairly easily. Definitely the major topic of discussion, and I know the board discussed this as well, was the Route 1 access point into our site. There was a lot of discussion on making sure that customers wouldn't try to turn left out of our site to go north on Route 1, as well as discussions on preventing northbound cars from turning left into our site, cutting across multiple lanes of traffic. Over the last month or two, we have had very close discussions with DPW and the city engineer. We provided multiple options to Adam to really discuss what was going to be the best situation for all parties involved. Ultimately, Adam did provide an example property, the Evergreen Credit Union in Scarborough, which I believe he provided a picture of that in the planning board packet for tonight. Charles, I don't know if you have that to pull up.
Yes, I just want to jump in, and I realized that the drawings that were attached are different than the ones that are here. So this is the correct one. So the files that were uploaded with the packet, I believe, were outdated. They were from 4/16, not the recent ones you sent over. So I'm just pulling them here. And this is kind of the design, and I'll go find the examples that Adam sent over.
So I guess just to orient the board with this new layout, you can see it is fairly similar to the layout that was presented back in April. We did make quite a few changes. Those include the addition of a second island. sort of to act as a vehicle or a pedestrian barrier, as well as just to increase the overall size of that separating median, with the intent of really directing cars to go right when leaving the site, as well as only taking a left into the site. We also included more robust pavement markings. You can see we added that only right turn sign on the pavement there of the exit lane. Additionally, we have signage of the exit lane saying no left turns, signs on either end of the access directed towards northbound traffic saying not to enter the site. It's also included as a note on the site plan. It's more tricky to see, but we are proposing wayfinding signage on Route 1 northbound prior to the Flag Pond intersection, basically directing customers where if they want to access our site, they will have to take a left at the intersection and come in through Flag Pond Road. So we'll work with Public Works on finding the exact location of where that signage will go. So I think between all of these changes, it has really made this design more robust in achieving the goals we want here. One of the last changes was the concrete islands. We did bump those up from 3 inches to 4 inches tall, just to provide more of a vertical deterrent from cars driving over those. But they are still manageable for the large fueling truck to get over them as they need to for a driveway of this size. So yeah, again, I don't know if Charles has that example to pull up, but you'll see it's very similar to what the city engineer wanted. If there are, yep, so there we go, right there. Again, really the only change is we don't have that no left turn sign in the island because again, it's needed for cars to pass over that or the fueling tank. Also, this island looks to be about 6 inches, where again, I mentioned ours is only 4 inches. So again, I think it provides a vertical barrier, but is also mountable for when it's needed. Looking through the staff notes, I saw there was a proposed condition of approval that if there are any further changes, they could be worked out with planning and DPW staff. So that is something we'd be happy to accommodate if there are any desired changes from what we've proposed here. So yeah, I think those are all the major items. There were some other small comments brought up at the last meeting. There was one related to the noise generation from the roof-mounted equipment. So we did provide updated calculations showing we do comply with that noise standard when adjacent to a residential property. There were some comments from city staff regarding the grease tank. So we provided sizes for those. So I believe we're just waiting for a final comment on that. But again, I feel like it's a fairly minor issue. So again, overall, I think at this point we have addressed all of the comments from city staff, peer reviewers, and the board. So I'd be happy to hear any other further comments you might have, and I can do my best to address those. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I commend you and to Public Works for working out this entrance. I think it is, much better kind of what we had, or I had envisioned for safety purposes. And maybe if staff could zoom in a little bit, I think there's an error on your exit southbound sign. You have 2 signs back to back. Facing Route 1 will say do not enter, and back to back it says left turn only. It should be right turn only.
That's correct.
So
Yeah,
if we could just correct that at the next one, would be great. But no, I think that really accomplishes some of the safety concerns that I had with people trying to exit your lot going northbound. So, thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members? Thank you, Charles, for putting this up, because that was the missing piece for me. The big question was, where was that update? I saw notes and responses and talking about it, and I hadn't seen it yet. So this is what I was picturing in my head, so I'm glad we were able to see it and review it tonight with you. Yeah, any other thoughts or questions from board members?
And you'll work with, I guess you have to work with the city or the state as far as wayfinding signs,
It would be
prohibiting
the city for that. Yes.
directing people to take the left turn onto Flag Pond, because it seems like that would have to be done back at Cascade Road for
Yeah,
people
that's
to
correct.
change lanes.
Yeah, DOT really deferred to the state on this, so we did, after the last meeting, send out comments to the state, see what their preferred access management was, trying to, work with them. And they really didn't provide much guidance, so it fell back onto the city to work with the applicant to find a creative solution that we were really worried about crossing the left-hand turn, 3 lanes of traffic. So we went through, I think this is the third iteration of a designs for this site. And it's what we looked at, especially for some of the examples that Adam provided, that it's the only way to discourage left-hand turn lanes without putting a physical blocker in the road, which DOT was not interested in. So I feel like Public Works and Planning both feel that this is a really good outcome for the site, and probably could be a good model for Route 1, once we see it in action.
Great, thank you, Charles.
So, Mr. Chair, seeing no other comments from the board, I would move that we reopen the public hearing for 952 Portland Road.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any discussion on opening the public hearing on this item? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0 to reopen the public hearing. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect those comments and address them accordingly.
So, Mr. Chair, seeing no members of the public choosing to speak on this item, I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any discussion on the motion to close a public hearing? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0 to close a public hearing. All right, back to the board. Any additional thoughts, questions, comments?
With that, Mr. Chair, I think if we wanted to pull up the draft findings of facts, if we need to make an edit to the date of which we close the public hearing. With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt the draft findings of facts for 952 Portland Road as amended this evening.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the findings of fact as amended this evening? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt the draft conditions of approval.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the conditions of approval as presented? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the site plan and conditional use application for 952 Portland Road.
I would second that.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on that motion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we take a quick break before the next item?
Sure, we'll do a 5-minute recess. Thank you, everyone, for that short recess. We will continue this evening with our next item. This is item 8C, and this would be 42 Ferry Road, map 22, lot 34, and this is a continued public hearing and application review. And this is a final subdivision review for the creation of 25 residential units within the medium-density residential zoning district. Charles, anything to add on this item before we begin?
No, the only one would be just the discussion about the crosswalk, but I'll be happy to talk about that with the applicant as that comes up. So that's the only major change that's come with this application tonight.
All right, thank you. And the image you're showing up is different than mine. Yeah, okay. Just
Yeah,
making sure.
wrong tab, that's my
Okay,
bad.
Just making sure. All right, thank you. Board members, any questions for staff before we begin? Jeff?
I had questions on the, what changed on the crosswalk, but I mean, I guess we can have the discussion later on. He's already addressed it, so.
It's a pretty last minute change. So initially, we looked at as part of preliminary approval, we looked at us recommending a all-way stop at Old Orchard, Beach, and Ferry Road, or an all-way stop at Pine Ridge Road. The planning board recommended an all-way stop and a pedestrian crossing there. That required DOT to review it. DOT really said, no, it doesn't meet warrants. The applicant came back with, here's a crosswalk down at Pine Ridge Road. The city has a new crosswalk policy that went into effect in June, May. So when we were looking at the resubmission, looking at the crosswalk, we felt that it still wasn't a safe crossing in that location, even if it was meeting the crosswalk policy. So looking at it, going up the hill around a turn, we felt, talking with city engineer, Deputy Chief Huntress, that there might be a better location for a crosswalk that is closer to the site on a straightaway. We lose a little sight distance on the south side, but we gain much more coming from the north, and it's in a little bit favorable location, just not around a turn as well. So we sent a message to the applicant team, said, hey, it might be better if it's closer. Site distance numbers indicate that. So we found a crosswalk that's in a more favorable condition. There's really no further connection. This also will allow, because of the crosswalk policy, if there were there's a sidewalk separation or crosswalk separation requirement in that policy. So that would reduce the potential for another crosswalk further down Ferry Road, where other folks have wanted a crosswalk before. So this just seems like a more favorable, safe outcome for a crosswalk that connects across Ferry Road for this site. It just happens to be right across from them. So it's a little bit better outcome that city staff feel comfortable with, given the new crosswalk policy, and I think the applicant's also amenable to it as well. So it still has the rapid flashing beacon, things like that. It's just in a slightly better position.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
So can you clarify, though, because the other previous neighbors have talked about Pine Ridge Road, and that sidewalk manual, I believe, says 400 feet between crosswalks. Does this location here still allow for there to be one if the city decides to do it at Pine Ridge Road? Do we exceed the 400 feet?
So there would, I'm not too sure. Maybe, I'm just looking 1 inch, 20 feet, no, probably not. What we were looking at, there's no crosswalk across from there right now. The only other location where there has been considered is at something Heights.
Atlantic Heights?
Yeah, Atlantic Heights. If we put a crosswalk at Pine Ridge, that would eliminate one at Atlantic Heights. So we felt that moving it further up the street creates a little opportunity for future crosswalk there if the city ever did. And at Pine Ridge Road, there's really no crossing there. There's no sidewalk plans for that. So that's how we kind of moved it to a safer location, that where we felt this was significantly more safe for pedestrians to cross.
Thank you, Charles. Any other questions for staff? Conflicts or disclosures? All right, with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening. Craig Burgess with Acorn Engineering. Here tonight on behalf of Big Ledge LLC. Jason with Big Ledge is here with me tonight. Charles pretty much summed it up well. There have been really no substantial changes with the exception of this crosswalk shift. We feel at this point all of the peer review and staff comments have been adequately addressed. We've worked diligently over the there was one remaining response letter that we provided mainly in response to the DPW, and we feel like those are now addressed as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to the board, here to answer any questions you have. And about the crosswalk, it was really, as Charles mentioned, it's really about the safer location here. We're open to either of the locations that we've presented so far, but staff has agreed that this is the better location, and the applicant is agreeable to this location. It is about 200 feet away from the Pine Ridge intersection, so it doesn't provide that 400-foot separation that's required. However, it is more than 400 feet to the Atlantic Heights intersection.
All right, great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Jeff?
So I guess I'll jump in. I'm glad that they were able to find a location. I want to commend you guys because during this project, you've been thrown a lot of questions and challenges, and you and the applicant both handled them with professionalism and courtesy, and you brought back a lot of very good information. So it's kind of nice to kind of see that come together. My only question is the ability now, because now we have this new sidewalk standard we're talking this 400 feet, but we have the existing requirement that required all new subdivisions to have sidewalks internally and on the frontage. And I know it seems odd, but we're now talking that, the other neighbors, and you were going to be going further before, would you be amenable to putting the sidewalk that's going to go to your property lines on both sides so we can meet, I could check the box that says you put sidewalkage along your frontage, and because it's the next guy that's going to need to extend, and we're going to be right in the situation because he doesn't have the luxury of putting a crosswalk in if he's within that 400-foot buffer. And I just think at some point we need to consistently think that we're going to need the connectivity. It's a basic standard. It's been in our ordinance for a long time. I think you only have, 380 feet, 400 feet of frontage on your road. Even though it's going to go nowhere, we're going to say we met the standard. We have a sidewalk on your side, so whoever develops on either side of you can connect onto that and then make their way to be compliant with the new city crosswalk ordinance.
Yeah, I did have a chance to discuss that with the applicant when we made this revision. The applicant is agreeable to either constructing that sidewalk as part of this project immediately or contributing to a fund that would support the future extension of that sidewalk. I'm not sure if that would be something that needs to be discussed with the police department, whether or not they want people along Ferry Road at this area, along a sidewalk that really goes nowhere at this point. So we would be open to either or, whatever staff and the planning board feels is best.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from board members?
I
Joyce?
assume we can, well, I'm just thinking about the condition of approval, but I'm sure Charles can create something.
It's a pretty easy change. I did look into it, and it really requires no major storm drainage. It's really just the curb and sidewalk. And the elevations lend itself well in this case, where the grades to the site tend to go uphill. And if you did the 5-foot sidewalk, you can really just blend in pretty well, and the grading works out pretty well. And the drainage, there will be a shallow ditch on the back side of that, so south of Unit 1, so the sidewalk really won't be receiving a lot of runoff going across it.
No, I'm just thinking of the text of the condition of approval, that
Yeah, I think
the
it's,
applicant will either,
yeah, I've gone back and forth on that sidewalk along the frontage, Jeff, so I think it's good that you picked up on that as well. And I've kind of got ahead of it. I asked city staff, other city staff about whether a fee in lieu or a sidewalk, putting in the sidewalk. Typically, we'd be more supportive of just putting in the sidewalk as part of the application. I'm open to do it. I would not want for us to set an arbitrary number tonight for a fee in lieu. I would like to work with city staff to do that if that was the direction. Otherwise, the condition as written kind of would include that, and we can just add some language about what the extent, but I would leave that to the planning board to discuss. The requirement is for the frontage and interior. While they do have the interior, they're not proposing the full frontage. So I think Jeff brings up a good point. So if you guys wanted to move in that direction, we can just update the condition to reflect sidewalk along the frontage. That's a very simple, it's kind of written that way. If you did want to go fee in lieu, I would recommend that you can trust city staff, planning, and administration, and the police department would add administration to that requirement. But I think I'd rather just see it built as part of the subdivision.
Mr. Chair, I would too, I think it's very important that we just hold to that ordinance requirement. Let's put it in so that we don't have other members on this planning board, saying, oh, we'll build a sidewalk to nowhere. Let's just have them put it in. If they're agreeable, let's have them put it in. Because we always have this fee in lieu of, and the money's floating around. Is it there? Is it not there? We have to have very well-vetted counselors that kind of keep track of it, it seems like. And it seems like it very rarely gets done. It takes a long time to do it. So I feel very strongly, and I think it works out well. The applicant's willing to do it. They've overcome it. They're going to have a very simple crosswalk at their street. But for whatever develops on either side of this, the vision will be there. Hey, we've already amended, there's a crosswalk, and it's not a huge distance. It's on the frontage. It's cut and dry in the ordinance. So I would prefer that we have a condition of approval that's specific to along the frontage. Thank you.
Any other, go ahead.
I couldn't remember if we had discussed the waiver for the buffers between the units. I know we've talked about it, but did we ever vote on it? Because it's in
You
here.
did waive it as part of preliminary.
We did. Do we have to waive it again as part of final?
I do not believe so.
Any other thoughts from board members? Chris?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jeff's point. I think it makes sense to just do the sidewalk extension now if the applicant team is on board with that. It's not ridiculously far from where the property line is now anyway. I do have a little concern to Joyce's point about people just going, well, there's a sidewalk, let's just cross here, if you're coming from like the Pine Ridge area. But as long as the city thinks that that's safe, I don't see an issue of just having them build it now and then expanding connectivity.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that's an interesting one for me. I don't know, for some reason. We've got the crosswalk right there and then extending a little bit to a lot of single families. I see it in and I see it not in. I guess, Craig, if that sidewalk extends, does the crosswalk location remain, you suspect? Does it stay within that radius, or does it slide any direction?
No,
I mean, because we have sidewalk on that north side of the property, right? That's north-ish, northwest side of the property. But we have it sidewalk down as well. But it stays on that radius, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't move to a more square perpendicular edge further page north or anything? I know it's just detail, but just thinking about moving forward or expectations and where it's here, do we, at the end of the day, does it move further up? I know we reduced sight distance, and that's not what we're looking for, so I don't expect that, but is it exactly where it is now? Is that where it might stay, or does it slide north a little bit? I suspect not south, but I guess I don't know. If there's going to be sidewalk south, does it make sense to move it further south more? I don't know. That's sort of questions that I'm now
You
bouncing
mean
around.
like sliding it just slightly north so that it's not on the curve?
Yeah, so it's not on the radius edge, or just sliding it further north, make it, that gains us more sight distance towards the north, so that 361 increases if it were on the opposite side. Obviously, knowing we got to cross now that driveway entrance to get to the sidewalk. I'm just, because now we're talking, we have the crosswalk design now, but now we're talking about adding sidewalks, so just, does it change? I guess that's all.
We could look
You can say
into
no.
just a slight shift 5 or 10 feet so that it gets off that curve would be better for sight distance, and we could certainly just work that minor detail with city staff.
Sure, and I'm okay with that. I just sort of trying to, in my head, set that expectation of we see it here, because we'll obviously, when we get the drawings back with any adjustments for signature, that would be shown in it. So when we get it back, if we see the sidewalk, excuse me, in a different location, that we all say, oh yeah, we expected that, or hey, what's going on? That's all.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't think you'd want it too far, move it too far beyond where it's drawn now, just because, I mean, you've got 361 feet of sight distance, but the cars are coming downhill here.
Absolutely, yeah. And just, yeah. So that's why I don't know if north or south, but, all right, I talked too much about it anyway. I just thinking about when the sidewalk gets added, does that crosswalk slightly adjust? So that being said, I don't have a particular preference. If it's there, I think it works in that general vicinity. I guess that's, long story short.
We're open to it. I can make a site visit to see if it would gain any additional sight distance if you move it 5 or 10 feet to the north.
I think with the, working it through with staff and the engineer, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I would just note that your comment about to the south, I get concerned about, as long as they have the appropriate distance for Atlantic Heights. They were here and they spoke at the public comment. They've asked several times for the community and I would hate to push them out. So if we need to stay here, that's fine. This one is going to have the flashing beacon, and I think the standard then is going to eliminate them having another flashing beacon within a certain distance. So let's make sure that Atlantic Heights, if they can petition and get council to put one in, they have the same buffer, because, they're typically an aging community. They would need this crosswalk, hopefully more than this one, but we'll see how it plays out. I think that's a pretty minor detail, and they have their safety aprons to deal with too, so.
Sure. And Atlantic Heights is quite a ways away, where it's almost, yeah.
I don't think we'd be looking to move it too far south because we would lose sight distance down the hill. But whether it's 5 or 10 feet, that's still all captured in the condition of the
Okay.
final location before plan signing.
Okay, that's fine. Apologies for dragging that out.
So, Mr. Chair, if there are no other board comments, I would move that we open the public hearing for 42 Ferry Road.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on open and public hearing for this item? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. If anyone is with us this evening to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them accordingly.
Mr. Chair, seeing no members of the public wishing to come forward and speak, I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine? I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. All right, back to the board. Any additional thoughts, questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, if we might have staff pull up the draft findings of facts so that we can make the corrections for our actions this evening. This is conditions of approval, right? The findings of facts, do we have to put our vote that we held a public hearing on today's date?
It's included that you held the public hearing on,
Okay.
7th.
With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt the draft findings of facts.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the draft findings of fact as presented? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0.
Now, staff, maybe if we could see the amended conditions of approval for the sidewalk verbiage. With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt the draft conditions of approval for 42 Ferry Road as presented and as amended this evening.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
I'll second that.
Second by Chris, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the draft conditions of approval as amended? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0.
With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we grant final subdivision approval for 42 Ferry Road, map and lot 22 through 34.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
I'll second.
Second by Joyce, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
A vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, our next item on our agenda this evening is item 8D. This is 7 Isle Avenue, map 37, lot 6-1, and this is a application of completeness review this evening. This is an amendment to a site plan, and it is to construct 1,000 square feet, 50 feet by 20 feet of community dock, and this is within the Saco Island zoning district. Do you have anything to add on this item, Charles, before we begin? And this
Yeah.
is,
So
this
I'll,
is the memo that we received as well.
yes, so the memo we received, I've had in draft format for a couple weeks and couldn't get a final review. But I did, in application discussion, I did kind of summarize what he was talking for. The city reached out to our attorney for just guidance on this process, and he kind of gave us the whole process. Primarily, I wanted the planning board to focus on the waiver section of that. And essentially, the applicant, as part of the proposal, is, so again, Saco Island Estates, condominium units on Saco Island, former site of Saco Island East. There was an approval application before the board in the fall when I started for a 200 square foot community dock. And they only really had to amend the condominium, but even then, they're allowed a community dock to be issued by the code enforcement officer for 200 square feet. The applicant is coming back because in our shoreline zoning ordinance that subdivisions can have a community dock, and there's a waiver request for the number of community docks, but not the size of the community dock. So the planning board is allowed, or if it's a new subdivision, hypothetically, you could have a bunch of different locations you can have a bunch of different community docks. I know at one point of different marinas and things like that were envisioned as part of this site, but never formally approved. With the request for 1,000 square feet for a community dock, we wanted to reach out to our attorney to make sure that we have the correct approach to this. I know that I've kind of given you guys guidance that is contrary to previous guidance when it comes to waiving zoning ordinance standards. There are zoning ordinance standards that specifically say the planning board can waive this, or if the planning board finds it. In general, what this legal guidance provides us is that if it's not generally expressively written that the planning board can waive a zoning ordinance standard, then they would need to request a variance to the zoning board of appeals. So this document is generally just establishing the planning board's scope in this application. And I've shared this with the applicant as well. According to our shoreland zone ordinance, the maximum size for a temporary dock is 200 square feet, and there's no extensions. They are allowed a different number of community docks, but it really doesn't work for this site given the federal navigation channel. So I learned a lot about that from our harbor master, which is fascinating stuff, but also some other limitations of the site itself. So the applicant came with originally a dock. They can have the 200 square foot dock today. But in order to have a 1,000 square foot dock, they would need to amend the site plan and get approval for that. And we feel that bringing it to the planning board so you guys can review it and then discuss the waiver as well. There's a couple avenues to go forward, but I really just want the planning board to work through this application in terms of application completeness and then discussing the waiver overview or discussing the waiver. While you guys you wouldn't be able to take action tonight because we need a public hearing, you can kind of grant some advice and have a brief discussion on the waiver. So that's what I was hoping for tonight. And I don't know if the applicant has anything else to add. But generally, in the memo, I kind of boiled it down to 3 bullet points. The applicant requested relief from the maximum dock size. The board should determine whether it has authority to grant the requested waiver under the applicable provisions of the code. And if you have the waiver authority, you can consider it with a complete application review, or you can provide the applicant guidance on going to the zoning board of appeals or alternatively requesting a zoning text amendment in some form. So really, it's just an administrative memo from our attorney outlining the process and establishing authority to grant the waiver for this application.
Great, thank you, Charles. Any questions for staff by board members on that memo? And I think we've come across a few scenarios regarding waivers and whether they fall under subdivision or a zoning ordinance item. So this is, I think, additional clarity, but hopefully not new territory for some of our board members here, maybe for some new ones. But with that, we'll invite the applicant up. If there's no other questions for staff, we'll invite the applicant up to give us an overview of his application if they're here. Is the applicant with us? Yeah, come on up.
How are we doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Can you give us name and where you're from for the record here?
Yeah, so I'm one of the partners for 7 Isle Ave, which is Saco Riverside LLC, 24 townhomes in
Okay.
Saco. We do have a permit for a 200-square-foot dock. We have the building permit for it. We have the Army Corps permit, which is all we needed for a seasonal dock. So the harbor master actually helped me with my house. We did that one first, and then we did this one. So as the buyers are coming, we're realizing, okay, you know what, we probably should give them one area, amend our condo docks, and kind of handcuff them so they're going to go to one place. And it wasn't to have, it's not going to be a marina. You'll give them enough room so you can have kayak, paddleboard and kayak racks. They got a destination, they can get water access, because the 3 buyers there now are doing water access on their own, and it's not safe. I mean, they're just trying to get in the water, so we figured if we could get a larger dock, we already have 3 of the owners that have signed papers, which we'd have to have them sign, but it's ready to get recorded, where they will not be able to come in front of the harbor master or the building inspector and get their own dock. So the one last thing we don't want to see is, all of a sudden, there's 12 individual homeowners that are on the water that can go get their own dock, like I did. So that's the goal, just give them a bigger one, and then that's their space, and that's it.
All right, great, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant regarding the application this evening to review for completeness?
I guess I'm just wondering, I mean, but homeowners could decide not to sign that document, right? I mean, people could decide not to use this and have docks in front of their own home.
So our attorney already had the papers drafted up. They're all notarized, ready to be recorded. So the 3 that are living there have to sign, and they did. Only the 3 that are living there, they're the ones that are setting the tone for it.
And then if there are additional buyers,
They're stuck with the amended condo docks.
you're gonna,
Yeah.
got it, got it.
Yeah, and I would also add that the site is really limited for additional community docks. That's the guidance we would provide. That's the only way they would come forward possibly, but with limitations of clearing along the buffer through the previous site plan approval, there's really only one access point for this, and again, the fascinating stuff, which is the Federal Navigation Channel, doesn't allow any of those docks. So this also requires the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to review, and they have granted their review and approval of this application. It is outside of, the dock itself is outside of the SRCC. They don't look at temporary docks. So really, the only limiting factor here would be the size of the community dock. So the owners could hypothetically all, get their own docks, but there's, A, it wouldn't be possible, just given the site constraints, and B, the community dock is a specific carve-out in that shoreline zone ordinance for subdivisions. It says new subdivisions, but as it's an amendment to a subdivision, still, I think that's fine. So the subdivisions are allowed to have a community dock that would give everyone, and, we have those condo documents for review that include it, but really it's the size that is the challenge here.
Yeah, and I'd like to say it doesn't matter anymore, but in 2006, the previous developer had two separate marinas, which each had 30 boat slips. So that was on both corners of the property. We don't have any intent to do another community dock, it's just one.
All right, thank you. Jeff?
So, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Could you?
Bernie Sonia.
Bernie?
Yep.
All right, Bernie. So the three that are current owners would amend the condo docs so that any additional buyers would be signing the amended condo docs, so we wouldn't worry about that.
Correct.
Now, you had said that the harbor master helped you put a dock in. Are you living on Seven Island Terrace as well?
No, I live in Camp Ellis.
Okay, so.
Yeah, separate issue.
So that's a separate issue. So I just want to say there's not another dock shown
No,
here
no.
on the site plan. So,
So the only reason I said that, because I got very educated starting with mine and then doing this one.
I
So
got
I
you.
learned a lot.
okay. So regardless, this entire complex would be served by one community dock, and nobody would ever say, well, geez, how come he has one and I, you know?
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions for the applicant or staff regarding application of completeness on this item? Joyce?
Oh, well, I don't know if this is application completeness or not, but why does it have to be 1,000 square feet? Why couldn't it be 500?
Well, we were looking at my dock, that's 200 square feet. It's very small. And if you're going to have 24 people there living there with families and everything else, that's why we decided to go to that size to give them enough room. So if someone's actually bringing their paddleboard up or trying to get in with a kayak, there's room for everybody.
Thank you, Joyce. Jeff?
So now you mentioned, you know, having some storage racks. Those storage racks will not be on the floating apparatus. They're going to
No.
be up on the upper deck. So really, you're only launching paddle boards and kayaks.
Correct.
Right? Would there be any provision for tie-up for motorized boats if people had boats?
That we decided, it's a community dock, so, you know, how do you say, okay, you can bring your boat up, you bring your boat up? So we said no boats.
So that would be a condition of approval. There would be no
Correct.
tie-up of motorized boats.
If they want to
for a
pick someone up, they could,
Yep.
but there's no, you know, anchoring a boat there or tying off.
Okay, so I guess that kind of brings me back to kind of Joyce's question. Well, okay, geez, I can see we want some stability if you have a family of four going down to put a couple kayaks in, but does it need to be 1,000 square feet to create that stability? Can you get the width that you need for stability there, and where it's just going to be small personal flotation or devices? Maybe it doesn't need to be that large. Kind of my thought. Okay. Gives me some insight. There were a few things that were checked off on the checklist for application completeness, like more information needed on the right title and interest. Is that kind of what you have cleared, like with the harbor master and the navigable channel and being in the water?
No, right title interest is like ownership of the property, so this is an amendment to a site plan and subdivision. So we have all of it, he already owns it's just, we have it, just not part of this application. Like, I could
Right.
go pull it up and do it, but it wasn't it exists. The applicant is building it, working on it. It's a similar thing to the adjacent property owners, like, we need to notice it when we get the receipt of application, so we did that. And it's one of those things where it's, you know, to me, it doesn't hold it up, because we know, like, if it was a new application, be like, show me the deed. I can go look at the previous approval and get the deed, and the financial and technical capacity is part of it. And then the deed from survey, like, we have, it exists, we're amending it. So that's up to the planning board whether that is, you guys would want to see that updated. But it exists, just wasn't part of the application packet.
So you're just saying, Charles, it's the same applicant that already owns it, that's already working on it, that's why you're...
Yeah, we're really just looking at a doc, but I wanted to kind of just provide that to you guys, get your thoughts on it, see, because it's something that I can, you know, probably screen beforehand too, make sure we get that. But right now, it just wasn't my focus. It's not the biggest thing I'm focusing on with this application.
Sure.
I wouldn't mind adding too, we spent probably 8 to 10 months with Army Corps to get the permit from them. So they kind of guided us, you know, looking at maps where it should go, make sure we're so many feet from the federal channel, blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't a quick process.
In the Army Corps for this size dock?
Correct, they already gave us a permit for it,
Okay.
yeah. And I guess I have a question for Charles or maybe the board. Copy of the deed, I understand, but for financial capacity, when it's already actually built. It's been sitting in the boatyard for probably a year, and we've been paying for storage, because we didn't know the process after we got Army Corps. We'd have to come back and amend, so we got ahead of ourselves in that. So it is paid for, we have paid receipts, and we already have financial capacity for the project, so is that something we have to revisit?
That's kind of why I not more information required and not know. They have the dock, it's temporary installation, so that's not really a financial capacity, that's homeowners, that's the association management. It's a weird limbo where like they have capacity for the rest of the project, they already have the dock. So that's why I didn't say no. So it's, personally, in my opinion, is that they have all of this, it's all there. We can just have the applicant resubmit some of it, provide how much the dock was, the receipt of buy-in. Like, that's a way to, meet the standards, but I think there's like larger roadblocks with the waiver, so.
Sure.
Again, up to the board, I do believe that maybe financial technical capacity isn't needed, a copy of deed, we can get that. It's a project that's been amended twice. We do have all the approvals. And we, like, for the property owners, abutters, we do that ourselves anyway, so.
Understood.
I mean, if you did want financial capacity, it's a small amount, it wouldn't be a big deal, if that's the vote.
Sure. I mean, I'm not worried about financial capacity on this dock here. It's sort of small scope in the big picture here, but Chris, thought?
Yeah, quickly on the dock. Yeah, I don't think financial capacity would necessarily be necessary. If you have a picture of the completed dock that you could send to the city staff so that we can at least see, all right, yeah, verify you already built it, I think that would definitely help.
Okay.
I guess I have a question for Charles and city staff. As part of this packet, section 230-804A4G says that basically we can only provide a waiver if there's additional handicap requirements, unusual winds, or wave conditions. Doesn't seem like this would meet that standard. I don't know if I'm just reading this wrong or.
Sorry, what was it again?
It's on the page 3.
Yeah, what was the code section?
Section 230-804A4G. The applicant may request a waiver if the dimensional requirements due to the additional requirements of handicap accessibility or unusual wind or wave conditions. Is that the only requirement that it could be, or is that one of the listed requirements?
That's for, I believe, marine structures.
So that would be like a permanent installation.
Yes, I do not believe, no, that would refer marine structure. Size construction. They can request, that is the variance request, but the planning board is not the approving authority for
Okay.
that. So if you go down, where is this here? It's really even unclear that the planning board could request a variance for additional community docks because it's shoreline zoning. That's usually the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
And in some way, the DEP as well, for shoreline zoning. So the authority, yes, they can request a variance for those measures, but it's not the planning board's purview to grant the variances. That's only the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question. Just to kind of, get my head around the process here. So say we decide, all right, waiver is approved, you can build whatever size dock you want, go for it. Is that then go to the zoning board, or is that the end of the matter type of deal?
So as it is, the planning board would not be able to grant approval. You guys cannot grant this waiver request effectively. So you wouldn't be able to approve the project until the waiver is granted, or you guys deny it, and then the applicant can seek the zoning board of appeals, but I think it's cleaner just to accept it and then direct the planning board, the applicant to the zoning board of appeals if that's desired. The process for zoning board of appeals in Saco is still trying to figure it out for myself. Unclear, it's not a board that meets regularly, so trying to figure out what is the appropriate path forward, the way to recommend. And so I think the easiest way, you know, if the planning board were to accept it, would to just be, we can't grant this waiver. It's a variance through the zoning board of appeals, and then it's just tabled until we get that determination. Because really, it's not much of an amendment. We would have our attorney just review over the draft homeowners association documents. It's a very minor change. And then we would just get the rest of the stuff. We have the plan, but it's really limiting into, you know, the planning board can't do this.
So if we denied the waiver, could the applicant still go to the zoning people and go, hey, I want this amended anyway?
It's the applicant's, it's difficult. The applicant's requesting a waiver,
Yes.
and the planning board can't grant it. So you really can't deny it or approve
Exactly.
it. That's why we kind of got the legal, it's the, kind of right below that in the application discussion, whether you have you guys need to determine whether you have the authority to grant the requested waiver under the provisions of the code. And so walking through it, again, it's, the attorney's opinion here is you do not. It's shoreline zoning. There are some sections in there that will give the planning board some leniency. This is not one of those.
Gotcha, yeah, because it does seem to me like we wouldn't have the authority. I don't know what the rest of you are feeling, but if, again, just trying to get my head around it, if we all agree that we didn't have authority, would it, at that point, as far as from the planning board's perspective, that would end the matter for us?
Yes, it would be, you know, we've accepted the application. We don't have authority to grant this waiver. We're going to wait for the waiver to be granted and take action. And I don't think there's anything prohibiting the board from denying the application, but you cannot approve a 1,000 square foot dock without some sort of
Gotcha.
change or variance.
So we're getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves a little bit. So
Yeah.
if we circle back from it, I think we can simplify. So as far as application completeness, any other thoughts or questions from board members, concerns, additional information that we're looking for from the applicant? Jeff?
Could we just get a sense? So you said the dock has already been purchased, constructed, it's in storage, you're paying storage on it. But obviously, most floating structures are not constructed in one piece when they're 20 by 50.
Correct.
Can you give us a sense of how this is seamed together and how it might be able to be broken down? Because I think that would be whether it be reviewed by us or the zoning board of appeals to say, hey, can you put these, are they 10 by 10 sections? So that they have a sense of scale, if they're feeling like it's, you know, they might be trying to find the wording, shall not be larger than necessary to accomplish, right? That might give them a little bit of guidance.
Right. So if you take the math, it's 4 pieces. It's divided into 4 pieces. So, because you got to think about it, it's a seasonal dock, so it's got to come in and out. So it's got to be in enough smaller pieces where they can actually handle it, get it out of the river, store it, and then come back. And then they connect together.
So 10 by 25, is that how you've divided it?
I think so, yeah.
That's a pretty long section to try to handle.
So mine at my house is, we went 200 square feet, so we went 10 by 20. And that's one piece, and they handle that pretty easy. Basically, what we'll try to do for the condo, the homeowners, is get them to an area like maybe Rummeries where they can just push it over, and he'll let them store it there, and they can pay the storage. I do the same with mine. I push it over to the marina, and they take it out of the water with the other one, so I found a way to do it. So that would probably be the goal, make it a little easier.
That was my only question, Mr. Chair. I guess we could probably try to determine if we want to find the application complete.
Yeah, if we could. Any other thoughts from board members?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I move to find the application complete.
I would second that motion.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff.
Any additional discussion on the motion to find the application complete?
I guess just noting the planner's notes about the items labeled MIR, that there are, in fact, in the planning office, copies of the deeds, information about financial and technical capacity. So the information was provided by the applicant, it's just not in this packet.
Sure.
I would amend my second to include that.
Great, thank you. Any additional discussion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
I'm going to abstain.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. So, waivers. So, as Charles mentioned, and then the memo from city attorney here further explained. So, based on the section of the size of the dock, the board can grant waivers, but not variances. So, since it's a zoning item, to increase its size, it's required a variance. So, variance would be zoning board of appeals, not a waiver that the board can grant. That's in summary of the letter we have here.
I would be less specific about that the applicant needs a variance in some kind, and really I don't even know if the zoning board of appeals can grant this waiver. Whether they can grant a variance to the size of it. But I think what I'm trying to say is that the planning board can't grant this variance or to this. Yeah.
Correct. All right, so I'm trying to use the terms in our ordinance. So the planning board does not have the authority or the power to grant a waiver or a variance for the size of a dock within the zoning standards,
Yeah.
including shoreline zoning. So from there, we would ask the applicant to work with staff to proceed through the correct avenue. So from that being said, I guess my question then back to staff briefly here is, in table 8.3, because we just have a snippet here, and you might be able to find it faster than me, the 200 square feet of dock, in a scenario like this, would that be allowed per lot or per homeowner? How does that get determined there?
So these structures can just be, they're all granted by the code enforcement officer. And then for the permanent piers, docks, that's planning board. The difficult thing here is we don't have the answer to this because this is not what happened. I do not believe that they could do multiple docks because it is technically one owner. That's a question for assessing and code that I don't think any of us really want to wade into.
I would say this, there's some areas down there where the individual could actually fit a dock pretty easy.
Yeah, and I think there's some other concerns about access, limited clearing, but I think the difficult thing here is H, which is developers of new subdivisions who propose docks as part of the subdivisions shall provide a community dock. The applicant may request a variance for additional community docks, provided demonstrated need can be shown for the additional facilities. What this doesn't allow is specifically allow for a community dock to be larger. So I think the zoning board of appeals would have to determine, is there a hardship for, not for 200 square feet? If they can, and that's on the zoning board of appeals to navigate that variance. That's why I'm really hesitant for us to confirm it, because the zoning board of appeals will have to approach this from a kind of a, can they grant this variance? And that's a conversation for them.
For them, agreed.
So, and then the other question is, would individual homeowners be able to allow? Probably not, because it's all under one homeowners association.
Sure.
So there's really only one main condo dock, so they're allowed the 200 square feet today. That's just what they're allowed to do. I think that's what I don't know if you had it out last season, but I know that that was an option. But I think the 1,000 square feet community dock is kind of that weird area where the zoning board of appeals has to determine, once the planning board determines they can't grant a waiver, they obviously can't grant a variance, it's up to the zoning board of appeals to determine the nature of the request and, the decision, and there's a lot of nuance in this ordinance, the way it's written, what is the variance, and things like that. It's kind of a little bit beyond my legal understanding, and it's kind of beyond the scope of the legal request that we had asked about, what this variance could look like, and there's no way to really picture that right now.
Sure.
The other avenue is obviously ordinance and text amendments, which is just a different process through city council and the planning board. But trying to get, the point I'm trying to say is I don't fully know what that variance would shape up to be, or how they would approach it, or if it's a variance they can even grant. But I think my concern really begins with and stops with the planning board, in terms of, can you grant the waiver? Is this something that can be granted via waiver? No, if it's a variance, the planning board can't grant a variance, and there's no carve-outs for this. So if they came in with new subdivision, they can do a community dock. They're limited to 200 square feet, and that's kind of the facts. And then the way they go through the zoning board of appeals is through code enforcement. They're the, that's the body for the zoning board of appeals. So I don't want to really go too deep into that, but I want to try to answer your questions if that makes sense.
Yep.
So
Understood.
we have all the permits for the 200 square foot dock, and that's actually being installed next week. So we do have all the permits that we need from code, Army Corps, and that one's going to go in just so our real estate team can actually say we do have water access. We're not advertising something we don't have. But we're going to put that seasonal dock in now.
Sure. So with that, I think we can talk with the board here about agreement that we can't grant a waiver and a variance for the size. I think that being said, multiple 200 square foot docks for a moment, whether they're allowed or not, I don't think is appropriate for this. However, I think a larger dock for 24 units is safer and is appropriate. Is it 1,000 square feet or is it smaller, like some of the other board members had asked? That I can't answer, but I think it makes sense for 24 units, for the amenity and the features we have for this area and the availability of that water access and taking advantage of, the river. I think a larger dock makes sense and is appropriate and warranted. But I don't think, I agree with Charles here, I don't think it's for the board to have the authority to grant that waiver beyond the 200.
I would say this, out of my experience, for our second season with our dock at our house, this is probably the first year we're really using it. And for the 4th of July weekend, we had 8 couples and 2 kids. And I can tell you, it was getting a little too much. So.
Yeah, understood. Jeff?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to touch me. I think you summarized very well. And I agree we can't grant the variance. It needs to go. But we now have an application before us as a planning board that we've received and accepted as complete. I want to be clear because I too would like to the owners are presenting a caveat that I like the additional security of them saying we're going to restrict our condo docks, stating very clearly that they cannot do individuals, even though the current staff feels like that wouldn't be permissible because of ownership. But if we have that deeded restriction, that makes us all feel better that we're going to have one community dock for forever, right? So is it appropriate for us to say, we've found the application complete, we're going to find that we cannot make the waiver, can we, like we would to council, give a recommendation saying, we think it's beneficial to have a community dock serving these 24 units? It may need to be a little bit larger, we don't know yet, but if they were to gain the variance, does it still come back before us for the site plan? Because it's a site plan site, it has to have our site plan approval. Once they get permission for whatever size dock that is, then we can do it and then tie those conditions of approval where they're going to deed restrict or condo dock restrict that nobody will come forth to try to put individual docks in at a later date.
Yeah, I think that's what the condo docs already say. I believe, and we can double check, and we can do that as part of the site plan, or the subdivision review. For this, that's 100% what we do. The recommendation piece, I wouldn't, because we don't know the scope of the zoning board of appeals if this is a variance that they can grant.
Okay.
So while because it's the way H is worded, that's a tough one. I don't know, and I don't know what a recommendation will, provide. I think the zoning board of appeals is a public hearing. I don't know if, I don't think there's anything stopping the planning board. I just don't know if it's, helpful, because it's a more of a, what's their scope of review, what's their authority. We don't, again, I said before, I don't know the zoning board of appeals process for Saco. I don't know if, in this situation, this is a variance request. I think it's just mostly on the applicant to work with the zoning board of appeals. We can provide some commentary, I in some way agree with that too, about, a larger community dock makes more sense when we're limiting docks. I've talked with the applicant about this. It makes sense. That's why we're bringing it forward, to kind of keep moving it along. So I think we can continue reviewing it, making sure those condo docks are good, and then with the caveat that it won't come back until we have that variance. And if I can, talk to staff, to administration and codes, and I can carry that forward for you, bring it to the zoning board of appeals, report back, and, help the applicant. I think the applicant's going to make the same case that we're all on the same page about. But whether the planning board should give a direct recommendation, I would kind of steer away from, because I don't know the relationship between the planning board and the zoning board of appeals.
So we could ask staff we could ask the applicant and to direct the applicant to work with staff on the correct avenue to increase the size of the dock, whether that's through zoning board of appeals or through a different avenue. And as such, we could request staff to make note that the planning board had discussion and seemed to generally be in support of a larger dock that could be appropriate for this site, pending the appropriate, review authority to increase such size if it exists.
Yeah, and I think as I've said, there's a couple avenues for this applicant for this, and I'm not too sure with the extent of the variance, because we could say the planning board highly recommends a variance, to allow this. It makes sense from the site plan, site functionality, and they might not be able to grant this variance. And that's more of that legal board of appeals language that they're going to have to wade into.
Sure, and I agree. I don't think we want to say, how did you word it, highly recommends or anything like that, but I think generally supports an increase in dock size. I think keeping it general, if that's the way the board feels collectively. But just to let the other, I don't want to make it confusing or send the applicant down a road that the board would not support. If the board does not support a larger dock, then let's direct the applicant. Let's say applicant, no, we don't support that. We're not, if the board is not going to find that acceptable, then let's just skip it.
And that's kind of why we're bringing it forward, because if you guys saw a 1,000 square foot dock and we're like, no, then we can save everyone a lot of time, I think, and that's kind of why we're here. But I think there's a general understanding that, yes, the planning board cannot grant this waiver, and it makes sense, looking at our ordinance and looking at the site function, to have a larger community dock. The precise size is, unclear, but a larger community dock that can avoid multiple community docks, and whether that's through some text cleanup or through a variance, I think that's.
Sure, and again, getting ahead of ourselves in details and semantics, but if there's an appropriate review authority that can grant an increase in dock size. If they granted a maximum dock size pending final approval by the planning board, that could create a little bit of a checks and balances that, almost like our old contract zones, that you could go up to this height, but it's still up to the planning board whether or not, it's appropriate for that size. It still has to fit character. So there could be some maximums that the planning board works with the applicant within, if that helps the process.
Yeah,
guess is what I'm saying.
I can pass that along. Again, this doesn't take the planning board out of the process. I don't think that's the concern. I think it's
No,
just,
it's not.
making it work
Sure.
in the context work.
I have a question. Back to what Joyce mentioned. Is it for the size of the dock to get a waiver? Is it anything over 200 square feet?
It's, again, it's not something that, you can't waive zoning ordinance standards.
Yeah.
You would need a variance if the zoning board of appeals can grant it.
Okay, so even if we did go 300 square feet, 500 square feet,
It's-
we're in the same process?
This
Correct.
201 square feet, if it worked out that way, you need a waiver.
Okay,
If someone nailed a plank to the end of your dock,
Right.
no, we'd
Or
need a waiver.
variance.
Yeah.
Variance.
I guess with or without any recommendation, if they were to get a variance, if it's even possible, it has to come back before the board because it's a site plan issue.
Yes.
Now, he's saying they're putting a 200 square foot dock in that wasn't on the site plan, but it's because they own the ownership and the zoning says, yes, they can do it. So they just get their building permit, they're entitled to it, and it goes, right? So I just wanted to make sure that if they are granted either through council ordinance change or through a zoning board of appeals variance, that they are coming back before us, because that gives us a chance to capture some of those details that we're talking about.
So it's
Okay,
pretty,
perfect.
and for a community dock over 200 square feet, they would need to amend the site plan.
And we back in November, approved an application from the applicant for the 200 square foot dock. So it didn't, I don't have notes that it came back, but the board at least found that application for a 200 square foot dock.
Yeah, so we
complete.
found the application complete, and then we went to code and said they don't. I was like, I don't even know if it was me, I think it was before I even started that, it was like, I don't think this needs to go to the planning board. Because it's a temporary dock, and those are just issued by the code enforcement officer.
yeah. and
Sure.
I'll add to that. The code advised us, just get the 200 square foot permit, get your dock in, and then come back. He said, do what you can by right.
Sure.
That's where we started.
So with that, it seems like the board is in general agreement of asking the applicant to work with staff to correct the avenue of increasing the dock size, however that may be, and then returning to the board.
Yes. We would return for a public hearing. We would schedule a
course.
public hearing.
Yep.
And then
So does it make, I'm reading this recommendation from the city attorney that we should make a determination. Should we make a motion that we do not have the authority to waive or to grant those waivers requested? And tell the applicant to seek the other channels? I mean, do we need to make that formal finding?
No, because you guys are just you're interpreting you can make a vote on it, but I think what you guys could do is just table it indefinitely until, you get their variance or the applicant figures out and the planning staff would schedule it for a public hearing when ready.
Yeah, I see it as approval from Saco River, or I know we have Army Corps already, but sort of that other review approval authority, and then return back to us. So, any other thoughts or questions from board members?
I think my last question would be, what would be the length or the process and time for what we're talking about? Months? 6 months?
I would suspect a couple months.
At least?
I would suspect a couple months at least. I'm not sure. Charles said that.
Because the way I'm looking at it, it's not that it's going to affect us this year. We'll keep the small dock we
No.
have.
I think you would have to get the dock out, I think it's like October or something.
October 15th.
October 15th, yeah, so you might be able to get it in for a week, but
Yeah, no, we won't go spend the money on that.
yeah,
No, we'll wait till the spring.
I don't know the,
So, I mean, we have
Process.
time, because we have the other one, so we have time. I was just
Sure.
trying to get an idea on it. That's all.
I think we are looking to have a zoning board of appeals meeting in August. But that is not a planning department, one, so
Okay, all right.
Okay.
it's not a board that meets frequently. So I think that I have already raised the alarms to get it ready.
Okay.
So trying to get ahead of it.
Well, we have time, so that's a good thing.
Okay. Thank you. Final thoughts from board members? Chris?
Charles, if just keeping up with timelines, let's say tomorrow the zoning plan board came in, they're like all set, ready to go, you're good. What would be from that day the quickest that we could get this back in front of us to? Is it like a 2 weeks? Because we have to notify.
September.
Yeah, we have to notify everyone and get all the.
We are full until September.
Okay.
Thank you for
Okay.
not tabling anything else.
Okay.
You're very full.
Thank you. I think have a motion here in a moment, but
With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we table the site plan amendment?
yes.
It says subdivision amendment for 7 Island Avenue dock until a later date. Table it indefinitely.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0. All right, thank you, sir. So we'll work with staff and we'll see you back at some point. Okay. Great, thank you. All right, moving along to our next item, item 9, general correspondence. Any additional general correspondences this evening, Charles?
Just the after-the-fact packet that was included.
All right, great, thank you. Any planning department updates or discussion items?
I do believe we have a site walk tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at 530 Ferry Road. So that will be there. I believe we will have Madison and Lauren from the planning department there, as I have our planning and development review committee at 8:30. The other one is that the August 11th planning board meeting is for training. I know it's summer. We are not going to be having any business that day outside of just the state mandatory required training. So I would really appreciate if you all could make sure to attend that one. That's a big one. Otherwise, I'm going to have to find you a workshop to attend either in person or that. And I don't know how the state's going to enforce it, but we're going to get you guys trained.
All right, great, thank you.
Do you have any information, Charles, on where we park for tomorrow's site walk?
Was it in the notice?
You can either park in the,
So the rare time.
so parking will be available at 530 Ferry Road as well as across the street at 537.
Or 537's across the way. And I did ask the applicant and the applicant rep to kind of direct traffic, as well, direct parking. So they
Right.
should be able to help you, point you to that direction.
All right, great, thank you. Item 11, planning board comments, if any. Jeff?
No, we're getting a lot of those late submissions or the updates with regards to like TES. Are we being included? I know a lot of that they're digging up a lot of very very eye-opening information, but, I mean, where it's not an active review for us, is that something more intended, is that going before council, and they're kind of working on some outstanding stuff with that, and we're just being kind of copied on it, so we're all on the same page?
There's nothing currently before the planning board for the ecology school.
Correct. Okay. But other than we're supposed to be receiving those traffic monitorings, I had made a request, and you said you would look into it, if we could possibly use multiple peer reviews to kind of alternate and kind of let them see, because it looked like some of the information they said was pretty clear that, you know, the peer review was asking, you know,
That wasn't the peer, that's the applicant representation. That wasn't the peer review, the attachment, but I don't want to wait until, I got your comment last
Right.
time, and we're coordinating with our peer reviewers to, make sure that to see what we're going on, but we have the quarter 2, and for quarter 3, we will coordinate with our peer reviewers,
okay.
in that quarter. But I do believe the rest of this has been in some form before the council. But really, the line for us is there is no ecology school application for the planning board. People can always submit general correspondence. So we will share it with you when we receive it.
Great. Any other planning board comments, questions? All right, great. Well, we will adjourn at 8:57 PM. Thank you, everyone.